Welcome to Coronavirus The Rundown. I'm Usher Qureshi. Each day we highlight how communities are taking on coronavirus. We also break down the major headlines. Today, some positive news. Fewer Americans are requesting mortgage forbearance plans. 4.76 million homeowners were on such plans as of Tuesday, according to data firm Black Knight. It says 7,000 new people signed up last week. Compare that to 350,000 in the first week of May and 1.4 million the first week of April. Two new major economic reports show how coronavirus is impacting our money. Consumer spending dropped 13.6% in April. That's almost double the drop in March. It's important because consumer spending accounts for about 70% of economic activity. The other report shows people saved a record 33% of disposable income last month. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis says that's the highest on record. The last record high was just over 17% in 1975. Well, with unemployment benefits under the CARES Act paying $600 per week, for some, returning to work can mean taking a pay cut. The White House is reportedly considering a back-to-work cash bonus to encourage workers to step back into their jobs or find new ones. Alexa Liacco spoke with business owners and staff about the struggle to get employees back to work.
I'm super ready to come back to work, excited to work, not sit around and do nothing.
Server Haley Roberts is eager to see tables at Reaver's Bar and Grill full again.
Just to get back to normal, get a schedule, kind of socialize with people.
But she's worried getting back to work will come with a cost.
I'm just hoping that when I come back, it'll kind of just pop back to normal and I'll be making somewhat percentage of what I was making on unemployment.
Roberts qualified for unemployment in March after the restaurant closed and was surprised to find
it actually helped me a lot. I would just wake up in the morning and I'd be like, whoa, I have a lot in my bank account.
Under the CARES Act, those who lost jobs because of COVID-19 can receive an additional $600 per week on top of usual unemployment benefits. That cash is helping Roberts towards a long-time goal.
I don't have a car right now, so I'm going to start putting some of that money towards getting a car.
And she's not the only one seeing extra green. A study from the University of Chicago found 2/3 of workers are making more money on unemployment than they did while working. Restaurant group owner Dan Shipp says that fact has made reopening a challenge.
But after 10 weeks, most of them have been like, yeah, it's time to get back to work. You do have the few that are kind of like, I don't think I'm ready for a couple of weeks. And what they're trying to do is get more unemployment. So we've told them there's no excuses.
Just a few blocks away, restaurant owner Heather Morrison says she's comfortable reopening more slowly and is individually planning how and when her workers return.
There are plenty of people much more comfortable staying home, staying safe, and getting paid what they're getting paid from unemployment. I understand that. Yeah. But yeah, each person has a different situation.
Roberts says staying home to help her own financial situation was tempting.
I would say I definitely thought about it. I don't really think that you can do that because it's like what unemployment's about. So I don't think it's okay necessarily.
Employment expert Johnny C. Taylor Jr. says employees could lose their benefits and their job if they refuse to return when their position is offered back.
You have to be really, really careful. I caution people to be careful about demanding how the employer is going to conduct his business, provided it gives you a reasonably safe workplace and takes the necessary precautions. If they demand that you come back to work, you've got to come back to work.
In a time where more than 40 million Americans are searching for work, Shipp says he'd like to rehire his staff, but he may be forced to replace them.
And we basically, kind of said, look, everybody's coming back. If you don't want to come back, we can't promise you there'll be a job.
I'm Alexa Liacco reporting.
From tickets to meter money, parking revenue is down across the country. Cities change policies in different ways, from making meters free to not enforcing loading zones or alternate side parking rules. We asked 3 local governments about April parking revenue. DC's meter revenue was down 56% compared to last year, and San Diego's was down 53%. Meter and fine revenues are down 35% in Denver since the first of the year. So how does the funding shortage impact people? Well, it all depends on location. In D.C., Denver, and San Diego, parking enforcement revenue goes into the local general fund, which pays for government services and programs that help taxpayers. Some state governments require cities give them a cut of parking revenues. In those cases, a local revenue shortage could have an impact at the state level. Well, months of social distancing and soaring unemployment have taken a psychological toll. New data from the CDC shows the number of adults reporting symptoms of anxiety disorder have tripled from this time last year. Mental health experts say acknowledging the fear, uncertainty, and loneliness that the pandemic has brought is crucial to managing it. Technology has done a lot to keep people connected via video conferencing or by text, but being physically detached is wearing on some.
One thing I've noticed with a lot of my clients is that initially they were not physically moving towards other people, but like emotionally, they were reaching out to friends and family. They were doing a lot of video calls, scheduling things. And I think people have gotten a little burnt out from that.
Dr. Kathleen Smith is a therapist and author of the book, Everything Isn't Terrible. Conquer your insecurities, interrupt your anxiety, and finally calm down.
There's flavors of the anxiety or the loss right now, right? And I think for some people it could be anger, but I think people are starting to experience sort of more of a malaise or a depression now, as opposed to just being a little bit anxious and jumpy, right? Where we're kind of settling into this funk.
The latest results from the Census Bureau indicate an alarming increase in the psychological toll the pandemic has taken on Americans. 1/3 of the 42,000 surveyed are now showing signs of clinical anxiety, depression, or both. That perpetual anxiety, says Smith, can result in understandable irritability.
The more anxious we are, the more we tend to pick fights or engage in conflict because we're not focused on ourselves, we're focused on everyone else and how they might put us at risk, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong.
Another important thing to realize is that you're not just working from home, you're at home during a global health emergency trying to get work done.
How important is it to sort of acknowledge that you can't set normal expectations for yourself in this time?
Yeah, well, I think that's another feature of anxiety, right? The more anxious we are, the harder it is to be realistic and objective about what we can and can't accomplish in a day.
To help cope, Smith recommends writing down 2 or 3 questions you want to ask yourself each day.
Like, how do I want to manage my anxiety today? Or how do I want to strengthen my relationships today? Just think questions that you can kind of turn to that are written down that help you do good thinking.
Smith says it's important to recognize the anxiety and face it head on.
We have anxiety for a reason. It's built in. It helps us deal with crises and with threats, but sometimes it gets in the way. And so I think being able to kind of laugh at it sometimes, recognize that it's part of our biology, it's part of our DNA, helps you kind of steer around it when you need to.
Well, more people are online shopping a lot right now. Why experts say it's a normal response to what's going on and the rule they say to set so it doesn't become exhausting. And the online travel host taking viewers around the world without leaving home. This together. As this pandemic evolves, so do shoppers' habits. A recent report by Walmart showed that at the beginning of the pandemic, shoppers were buying groceries and household essentials. Then they moved on to buy things like puzzles, video games, and bikes to keep them entertained at home. Shoppers also bought things to create home office spaces and decorate other parts of their homes. And now that most people have received their stimulus checks, they're buying clothes, TVs, and toys. One money coach says these behaviors are a response to trauma, something that's very real during this pandemic. Many of us are looking for control and hope.
All of those together actually have taken us to a place where we are now more impulse shopping as opposed to necessity shopping.
Many will resort to retail therapy, which does help, but only temporarily. Many will often feel guilt and shame after shopping. Now, shopping is a normal response to dealing with trauma, but there are alternatives. If you feel like you need a break during work, have a list of 10 things you can do that take 5 or 10 minutes. That can be listening to music, taking a walk, or doing laundry. If you do choose to peruse around online, do it in a smart way.
The longer you spend looking in shopping, the more you are going to buy. So give yourself a time. If you want a 10-minute break, set a timer for 10 minutes, and you'll be surprised at how quickly 10 minutes goes.
If you feel like you've exhausted your time, put the phone or computer away and take 10 breaths. Then ask yourself questions about the product you're about to buy and whether you really need it. Our experts say because this pandemic is considered traumatic, it's normal for many to develop life-changing behaviors after this. In fact, some people who were considered compulsive shoppers before the pandemic have stopped shopping completely because of the uncertainty about money and jobs. Well, with many people still staying home, a famous travel host is showing her audience stunning views of the world without stepping outside. Here's Elizabeth Ruiz.
Korčula is one of the largest islands in southern Dalmatia.
Ashley Colburn is an international TV host, producer, and travel expert. You can find her shows on different networks around the world, cruise ships, airlines, and YouTube.
I filmed in at least 40 countries. I've traveled to 60.
She's a San Diego native, but she now lives in Istria, Croatia, a place not too far from Italy. When the global coronavirus craziness started in early March, her schedule, which is usually planned a year in advance, was changing by the day.
And things were starting to get canceled left and right. I had no more projects. And then I remember waking up one morning and I had a text from my mom, and it was right after the travel ban was mentioned from Europe. And so it was kind of a sudden shock. Oh, wait, do I come home? Is everything going to get canceled? There was just so much unknown, but I didn't really want to be trapped doing nothing in, an apartment in Europe where you can't leave, because this is what was happening in Italy.
So she flew home to California and isolated herself with family. She's now been in San Diego for 10 weeks and counting.
I'm always on the move, and so I will say that there are always those to-do lists.
But since her travel itch hasn't gone away, she feels like it's her responsibility to keep people connected to the rest of the world when they can't travel.
We just have to be creative now as travelers and come up with other ways of, sharing the world with people, inspiring them to still travel one day.
She's inspiring people through Windows of the World.
Look at that view that you have. I figured I have contacts around the entire world. And so I thought, well, if they're stuck at home and I'm stuck at home, I'll order in a studio from Amazon. And I started just calling them through Skype, and I would film these conversations about what the situation is like there, and I would have them show the view.
Windows of the World is a YouTube series intended to help people travel virtually.
If you haven't been to Dubrovnik, you have to.
She hopes to teach people about different cultures and the power of human connection during a pandemic.
And so far, I have talked to people in Rwanda, Croatia, of course, in Dubrovnik, Croatia, in Jordan. I'm just about to release one in Slovenia.
Ashley has plans to film in Egypt this fall, and she's considering many different options to continue her work.
I've even thought about doing a road trip even here around the United States. I'm not often in the United States.
However, she says now is the best time to reflect on the trips you've taken in the past, making sure you don't take any future trips for granted.
I think even for a traveler, it's good to kind of sit back and take a look at your life that you had around the globe and actually appreciate all those moments that you've had.
The island of Korčula should...
I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting.
The Smithsonian Institute is working to document history as it happens. It's asking any person or organization to set things aside that will help tell the story of COVID-19.
America will not be the same after this event.
Alexandra Lord is with the Division of Medicine and Science at the National Museum of American History. She says a task force is looking for items that will show the full impact of the coronavirus. They've been in touch with the U.S. Public Health Service to hold on to medical supplies like ventilators, test kits, and masks. Objects from corporations and small business can help show the massive economic impact. Curators are also looking into how to document working, learning, and spending time together through Zoom calls.
We have access to all sorts of technology that enables us to talk to family and friends. And that's really different from past pandemics. So we really want to mark that in some way.
Right now, curators are just flagging the objects they're interested in. They'll start the long process of physically collecting once their offices reopen.
In fact, it's more than probable that 40, 50 years from now, curators at the Smithsonian may find objects in someone's attic that were related to COVID-19, and we may feel at that time, this is a fabulous object. We really want to bring it into the museum.
You can suggest something for curators to consider by sending an email with pictures and descriptions to inquiry@si.edu. Well, many youth and young adult sports leagues are on hold right now. We're looking into how those leagues could be changed forever.
And a tour.
Welcome back. In many communities, the return of youth and young adult sports leagues are still up in the air. As Kai Beach shows us, the rules of the games might be very different moving forward.
You're slowing down.
Whether running down the track or racing down the sidelines, sports have always played a big role in the Smith family. But when COVID-19 concerns canceled their kids' respective sporting seasons, the impact was more than physical. It was emotional.
My kids responded to the news with disappointment.
Herbie Smith says his children understand the severity of this coronavirus crisis, but it's still frustrating sitting on the sidelines.
They really look forward to sporting, not only for the enjoyment of playing sports, but also engaging with their friends.
The CDC recently began promoting behaviors to reduce the spread of COVID-19 for youth sports.
Way to go, buddy!
And several organizations are paying attention to the game plan.
This is tough, I would say, for all of the kids.
Dan Veltz is with Little League International. He says the pandemic has delayed seasons significantly. With more than 1 million players worldwide, Little League leaders are now telling each league to follow their local health guidelines if they want to play ball again. They're also calling a worldwide audible, advising players not to share equipment, saying parents might not be in the stands next season, and that umpires might no longer be allowed behind home plate.
We're recommending that the umpire stands behind the pitcher's mound to call balls and strikes.
From the pitcher's mound to the soccer field,
Keep it moving, keep it moving.
The impact of coronavirus is changing and canceling a variety of youth sports.
We decided to suspend basically our programming across the nation in March.
Yvonne Lara is with the American Youth Soccer Organization. With more than 400,000 players across the country, AYSA was telling leagues to follow their local jurisdiction for guidance. They're also putting together their own alternative play models, including such things as pregame temperature checks.
There's no more sharing of anything, as kids like to do. We're removing handshakes, high fives, hugs, any sorts of stuff. Basically going to have to re-educate the kids. We're probably going to have a waiver that basically says we're doing our best possible, but there is not the elimination of risk.
Well, getting back on the playing field is important. Smith says there are lessons to be learned from this.
We as a family have started to kind of reconnect doing activities together, and that's been a silver lining in the whole situation.
I'm Kai Beach reporting.
A business owner is getting creative to keep his community safe. The backstory of this portable sink that he's hoping to bring to areas in need. Welcome back. We like to end with stories that remind us of the good going on. Today, a pizza owner in Baltimore is using his creativity to keep customers safe. He's created portable sinks. The owner of Tiny Brick Oven Pizza first created a portable sink a decade ago so that he could wash his hands while making pizza at festivals. Now that customers can't go into the restaurant bathroom, he brought back the sink to make sure people still stay clean.
If you've touched a doorknob that maybe has the virus on it, and then you're going around touching a bunch of other objects, and now those have become contaminated, if anywhere in that chain you're able to wash your hands for 20 seconds, they know that the soap kills or deactivates the virus, essentially. That means that anything you've touched after that would not be contaminated.
He also hopes to get the sinks into other parts of the community, including homeless encampments. Supplies for just one sink cost about $30 and can be built in under an hour. Well, that's all the time we have today for Coronavirus, The Rundown. We'll see you next time. I'm Usher Qureshi. Thanks for joining us.